Constitution of India has given the President a wide range of powers. But there is a twist. Since the President is the nominal head of the country, he has only ceremonial powers or formal powers. And whatever decisions the President has to take is done in the advice of the Prime Minister and his Council of Ministers. So for our understanding, we have divided the powers and functions of the President under various subheadings, such as executive powers, legislative powers, financial powers, military powers, judicial powers, diplomatic powers, discretionary powers, and emergency powers. In today's video, we'll be talking about the executive powers, legislative powers, and the financial powers. Let us start with the executive powers. Imagine your school sends you a notice saying that classes won't be held for the next week, or saying that classes will be held on an extra Sunday. But this notice does not have your principal's signature. Won't you think that this notice is fake and that the school hasn't sent you an official notice? Why? This is because all the notices of the school are considered authentic only when they have the principal's signature. Just as all of the notices sent by your school are considered authentic only when they have the principal's signature, similarly, the notices or the decisions and orders of the government are considered authentic under the name of the President. So, the executive powers of the Union are vested in the President. The President is the head of the Union Executive. All executive orders are issued in the name of the President. So all executive orders and decisions are considered authentic only when they are signed under the name of the President, or when the President puts his name to those orders. The second executive power is that the Constitution says that the Prime Minister shall be appointed by the President, and all the other ministers are appointed by the President on advice of the Prime Minister. But in reality, the Prime Minister is the leader of the party or the coalition that gets the majority support in the general elections. So, this is a power that the President has only on paper. And the Prime Minister advises the President on whom to appoint as his ministers. And the President appoints these people as the Council of Ministers. So the other ministers are appointed by the President on the advice of the Prime Minister. The President not only appoints the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers, but the President also has the power to appoint and remove high dignitaries. So the President also appoints the Attorney General of India, the Comptroller and Auditor General of India, judges of the Supreme Court and High Court, the governors, ambassadors, members of the Finance Commission, members of the Union Public Service Commission, Chief Election Commissioner, and members of the Election Commission. So the President appoints all of these high officials. But there has been certain talks regarding if it is fair for the President to appoint the Chief Election Commissioner. Why do you think that is? It is because the President has only formal powers and he is advised by the Prime Minister. So the Prime Minister is the leader of a majority party, and this Prime Minister advising the President to elect the Chief Election Commissioner is somehow controversial because the President only has the formal powers and he is advised by the Prime Minister. Now the Prime Minister is the leader of the majority party, but the Election Commissioner should be someone who's unbiased and neutral because he is in charge of the entire election process. So the leader of the majority advising the President to appoint the Chief Election Commissioner stands a little controversial. Now we've learned who all the President can appoint, but the President can also remove certain people. So the President also removes the ministers, the Attorney General of India, and the governors. But like we've already said, that the president has only the formal powers. And regarding all of these appointments and removals, the president is advised by the Prime Minister and his Council of Ministers. Other than this, the Constitution says that every union territory shall be administered by the president. So the president can make regulations for the peace, progress and good governance of these union territories. The president acts through an administrator who helps the president in carrying out his duties more efficiently. Do you know when there is an emergency in a state, it is called the president's rule. Why is that so? It is because that during this president's rule, the control of the union government over the states is complete. That is, the union government can make decisions regarding state matters. And the president, who is the representative of the union executive, has control. So, this is known as the president's rule. And as we can see here, from a report of January 2016, this is the total number of times the president's rule has been applied to each state of India. Now let us recap the executive powers of the president. So we've learned that the president is the head of the union executive, and all orders and decisions made by the union executive is considered authentic under the name of the president. Secondly, the president is responsible for appointing the prime minister and the council of ministers. The president appoints the leader of the party or coalition that gets the majority support in the general elections as the prime minister of the country. And with the advice of the prime minister, he appoints the other ministers. Thirdly, the president has the power to appoint and remove many high dignitaries of the state. As we learned, the president appoints the Attorney General of India, the Chief Election Commissioner and the Election Commissioners. He appoints the Union Public Service Commissioners, the judges of Supreme Court and High Court, the governors and ambassadors. And he also removes the ministers, the governor and the Attorney General of India. But again, these powers are on the advice of the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers. Fourthly, the president is responsible for the administration of the union territories, and he acts through an administrator who helps him. The fifth executive power is that during the president's rule, the president gives necessary directions to the state. So since the union executive has power over the states, the president can give necessary directions to the states. Now let us go to the legislative powers. Legislative powers are relating to the legislation or lawmaking process. As we've already learnt in the legislature chapter, the president is a constituent part of the Parliament of India. So he has certain powers in relation to the parliament or the process of lawmaking. The president has the power to summon and prorogue the parliament. That is, the president has the power to call meetings of the parliament and to dismiss meetings of the parliament. Other than this, the president can dissolve the Lok Sabha. But of course, he cannot do this at his own will. It is only when the tenure of the Lok Sabha has ended or when the ruling party has lost the majority support of the Lok Sabha, then the president can dissolve the Lok Sabha. After the Lok Sabha has been dissolved by the president, new elections are held. Remember how we had talked about how only the elected members vote for the presidential election and not the nominated members? Well, that might be because the president is itself the one who nominates these members to the house. So the president has certain nominal powers. He nominates certain members to the house. 12 members are nominated to the Rajya Sabha by the President among people who have special knowledge or practical experience in matters like art, literature, social science, etc. So 12 members are nominated to the Rajya Sabha by the President. The President also used to nominate 2 members of the Anglo-Indian community to the Lok Sabha. However, it was scraped off, and so now the President only nominates 12 members to the Rajya Sabha. So, can you answer this question now? How many members are nominated to the Rajya Sabha by the President? Is it 10, 12, 15 or 2? Right, it is 12. 12 members are nominated by the President to the Rajya Sabha. The President addresses both houses of the Parliament assembled together at the first session after each general election and at the commencement of the first session each year. Other than this, the President can also call for meetings of the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha or joint meetings of both the houses together. The President can also send messages to the houses of the Parliament or address the houses of the Parliament whenever he wants to. So we know that for a bill to become an act, it has to be passed by both houses of the legislature. It has to be passed by the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha, and it has to be approved by the President. Otherwise, it cannot become an act. So all bills have to necessarily get the assent or signature of the President. So the President can give assent to a bill, refuse assent, or send it back for reconsideration. But the President can send a bill back for reconsideration only once. If the bill has come back again, then the President is bound to put his signature on it. Along with that, there are certain other bills that cannot be introduced without the permission of the President. So money bills cannot be introduced except on the recommendation of the President. When we talked about how the President can send back a bill for reconsideration, we cannot include in that the money bills. So the President cannot send back a money bill for reconsideration. Do you remember what an ordinance is? An ordinance is any law promulgated by the President in those circumstances when the Indian Parliament is not in session. So the President has the power to promulgate ordinances. This gives the President an extra legislative power whereby when the Parliament is not in session, the Cabinet can advise the President to pass an ordinance. This is an emergency or urgent legislative measure which is also temporary in nature. When an ordinance is passed, it is necessary that none of the houses of Parliament are in session. Whenever the Parliament is back in session, the ordinance has to be put forward in the Parliament. And within 6 weeks, if the ordinance is not approved, then it will cease to exist. So, if the ordinance after being placed in the Parliament is disapproved, it will cease to exist. Similarly, if the ordinance is put forward in the Parliament and no action has been taken regarding it, and 6 weeks have passed, it will still cease to exist. It is only when the ordinance is approved within 6 weeks of reassembly of the Parliament that it will become a permanent law. Just like the bills of the Union government have to be signed or given assent by the President, the bills passed by the states have to be passed or approved by the governor of the state. Now, bills passed by the state legislature may be reserved by the governor for the consideration of the President. Do you know which bills are compulsory to be kept for reconsideration by the President? It is the bills affecting the powers of the high courts. These bills must always be reserved for the President's consideration. Why do you think that is? This is because no state legislature can reduce the power of the highest judicial body in the state, that is the High Court, from what it is mentioned in the Constitution. So, that is why the bills affecting the power of the High Courts must always be reserved for the President's consideration. Now let us sum up all the legislative powers of the President. So at first, the President has the power to summon and prorogue the Parliament and dissolve the Lok Sabha. So the President can call for meetings and also end meetings of the Parliament, and he can dissolve the Lok Sabha. Secondly, the President has some nominal powers. The President can nominate members to the Rajya Sabha. He can nominate 12 members to the Rajya Sabha from among people who have practical experience or special knowledge in certain fields. Thirdly, the President can address and send messages to the houses of the Parliament. The President can address the meetings of the Parliament houses as well as the joint meeting of the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha. He can also send them messages when required. Along with this, the President can give assent to a bill, refuse assent, or send it back for reconsideration. The President's assent or signature is necessary for a bill to become a law. So the President has the power to promulgate ordinances. So when the Houses of Parliament are not in session and there is need for an urgent law to be passed, the President can promulgate an ordinance. And lastly, bills passed by the state legislatures may be reserved by the governor for the consideration of the President. So the governor can reserve certain bills that have to be then considered by the President. And all bills that have a change in the powers of the High Court have to be compulsorily reviewed by the President. Now that we've discussed about the legislative powers and the executive powers, let us talk about the financial powers of the President. We know that money bills can be passed only in the Lok Sabha. It can be only introduced as well in the Lok Sabha. But a money bill cannot be introduced in the Lok Sabha without the recommendation of the President. So the need is there for recommendation by the President, and only then can a money bill be introduced in the Lok Sabha. Secondly, the annual financial statement is laid before the Parliament in the name of the President. In the annual financial statement, there is a part which is the budget. The budget cannot be passed in the Parliament without the prior recommendation of the President. Now imagine a situation where the yearly budget has been passed and all estimates of expenditures for the ensuing year have been given. Money has been sanctioned from the Consolidated Fund of India and used wherever it was required. Now imagine there is a sudden occurrence of a natural disaster, for example an earthquake or a flood. In that situation, urgently money is required for providing medical care and providing relief. Now where will this money now come from? Now this money will come from the Contingency Fund of India. The Contingency Fund is the emergency fund for the nation. It exists for advancing money during disasters and related unforeseen expenditures. So when there is an urgent need for spending money in an event which was not planned from before, the money can be taken from the Contingency Fund. The Contingency Fund is placed at the disposal of the President. So the President has the power to advance money from the Contingency Fund when it is urgently required. However, in reality, the contingency fund is held by the finance secretary on behalf of the president. The constitution makers were aware of the financial requirements for the center and the states. And for meeting these financial requirements, the Finance Commission came into being. The Finance Commission has one chairman and 4 other members. So, the Finance Commission is a constitutional body which decides the process and the formula for dividing tax proceeds within the center and the state and among the various states. But like every other constitutional body, its members have to be changed periodically. So the president, after every 5 years, appoints the chairman and 4 members of the Finance Commission. So every 5 years, the president appoints a chairman and 4 other members of the Finance Commission. Let us now sum up what financial powers the president has. So a money bill cannot be introduced except on the recommendation of the president. We know that a money bill can be introduced only in the Lok Sabha and only when it has been recommended before by the president. Secondly, the annual financial statement is laid before the parliament in the name of the president. Thirdly, the contingency fund is placed at the disposal of the president. So, when there is need for advancing money during urgent unforeseen events, the president can advance the money from the contingency fund. Fourthly, the president appoints the Finance Commission every 5 years. So, the president appoints one chairman and 4 other members of the Finance Commission after every 5 years. So, in this video, we've talked about the executive powers at the beginning. Then we went on to talk about the legislative or the lawmaking powers. And then we've talked about the financial powers of the president. In our next video, we'll talk about all of these other functions and powers of the president. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon. You can also register for free at DeltaStep.com or download the DeltaStep app to get access to all our 5,000 plus amazing videos as per your school syllabus. Master each topic with our adaptive practice technology. Get million+ questions with step-by-step solutions and unlimited mock tests. Get all your doubts resolved instantly. Learn via games and win amazing prizes like PlayStations and iPads. So at DeltaStep, learning is not just fun and easy, it is rewarding too. So register for free now.